This one I've been toying around with recently for a little while, and it's something that maybe I've wanted to say at a lot of times in my life, but it's kind of hard to bring out. I don't usually care too much, or I don't know what the words are for it, because it's kind of a weird situation. But I probably come across as not giving too much of a shit about how other people look at me. Like if they think I'm weird or um, what my tastes are or whatever. And I expose a lot of that on video. I have to be a little careful here, because I don't want to give wrong impressions to anybody who. Anyway, anyhow, you know, I'll dress like shit and wear clothes with holes in it. Much of the time when I just feel like being comfortable, when I'm at home especially, but also, I'll go places and I'll just be looking like I'm in rags or whatever and not care about that. But then at other times I'll be in the mood to dress a certain way. But here's what's weird. There is a certain level of wanting to be seen, wanting to be, and this is the narcissism, right? Wanting to impress in a certain sort of way, but not in the kind of way that, like, most people, I think, generally tend to. Where they're like, yeah, I'll look nice today, Instead, it'll often be something that's off the wall or whatever. I'm just thinking about, like, when I was working in the office, I would wear a suit some days. Why? I don't know. Just felt like it. Very seldom, if I was wearing, if I was there in my normal stuff, I had to follow certain dress codes and whatever. So yeah, we weren't allowed jeans, we weren't allowed sneakers. It was sort of a business casual type of thing. But I just wear like a Hawaiian shirt, and because I picked up a lot of them while I was in Phoenix, a lot of silk ones that I liked, and they were good for the weather and whatever, and a pair of slacks, and that would be cool, And then they loosened up, and I stayed mostly in the same dress because I'm not really a fan of jeans, but I would switch to sneakers more when that switched. But nobody wore a suit there. Nobody wore a suit there. In fact, it was kind of a weird thing, because there was one guy in my group who would wear a tie every day. And here I was, now and then I'd wear a tie. Mainly, I would dress up just before, like on the day before I went dancing or the day I went dancing, and I would wear the same outfit dancing. So whatever I wore, which might be, like I did in the EU review video or whatever, it might be anything. A lot of different kind of odd things would be, I just feel like dressing up, and if I'm going to wear it dancing, it's going to get all sweaty and I'm going to have to clean it and everything. So whatever, So there became sort of a one day a week I would come in dressed kind of cool. Now, nowadays, with so much of my clothes disintegrating, or my fat, which I did drop 10 pounds over the last month or so, making it so that I can't wear a lot of the things I was used to, and I haven't been going shopping. The only place I go shopping for neat stuff is at like Goodwills and stuff like that, where I kind of let whatever hits me. But so there's kind of I want to look this way, and I don't care if, like, it doesn't fit the preconceptions that people have. It's not a pure, I don't care what they think about me, as much as this is, you know, just how I want to present on this day or whatever. And by saying it that way, instead of not giving a shit what people think about me, it's more of a matter of, I don't care if they think negatively for different reasons. This actually puts this in a different perspective than I thought I was going to start off from. Because it's important to me, just as maybe presenting in a certain outfit is, to present as a certain kind of person. And that isn't a good person. It isn't someone with lots of confidence. It's not any of the things that this society terribly values. I like to think of it as presenting as a paragon. But not like some paragon of purity or of honor or anything like that. More a set of traits that just already seem to define me. In particular, things like not being a bother to other people, not asking for help, not going up and talking to people who might not like me, you know? In one particular case, the dance, it's presenting as the dance being the thing that's important and expressing that pain and destruction that I've many times, put forward when I try to explain why I do it. Some of that is because of thinking that I've done on my own, where at one point or another I, would think, okay, even though that paragon side of things would still be there, and it has been there throughout my entire life, that I remember at least, is this sort of, oh gosh, I don't know. So even when I used to go dance, or back when I used to go dancing early on, when I first came to Eugene and really kind of hooked back into the idea, when I would go dancing in Phoenix after that, and not so much by the time I got here, I would say. By the time I got here, I feel like the other side of it, that side which is, it is, the thing that I'm trying to present is it's all for the dance, and maybe for, some perceived adulation of the crowd, or whatever, which, may just be fantasy. I know it's not entirely, but a lot of it may be. But earlier on, I had, vain hopes mixed in with it that, like, I'd meet someone this way, that I care, that I ended up, being very interested in, or whatever. That because honestly, throughout the entire time, I found that there were no other ways to meet people. Now, when I was first here, online, I managed to meet people that way, and I would get together with them and whatever, went for walks with a few people that way. Sometimes gaming, like when I first sought out a gaming group here, or when I first started playing in a gaming group, that's also another thing that, like, yeah, I can meet people who have the same interests as me, and we have shared activity and whatever, and who knows, and I did. Not maybe what I hoped for most, because it was all just guys that, you know, I had got good conversations with and hangout time with. That's all faded away for various reasons. That's the way things go, because everything disintegrates. But, you know, there's always this sort of, or always was with the with dancing early on, this sort of thought of some kind of romantic connection. And I'm talking about even when I was with my wife, because obviously, you know, I'm interested in a triad more than just a pairing. But, and that's just me. Yeah, you know, that's one of the things that, in a way, I've set in that status, the same paragon state, was that this was what I see for myself, right? What was right for me. And it's not just a presentation externally, this whole thing. A lot of it is what I tell myself, too, the little secret stories that we tell ourselves to make us able to deal with who we are, whatever it is. But that's sort of faded away over time. And other aspects of this, which have existed throughout, I often look at and I say, you know, is this just a cover, right? I have another thing that's similar to that. I don't let people take blood. Why? I don't know. But obviously I don't like that. I think I had a reaction to not, you know, having my blood taken from me. But then I started coming up with a mystical reason behind why it couldn't be done. And one that I only sort of half believe at best, and that's sort of the same as this concept of paragon, is that I only half believe I'm that way. So if there's things like honesty, which I strongly believe that one should be very honest, very truthful, that is somehow important to the existence that I perceive for myself again. But the reality of it is that I've lied in my life. I've lied about big things. I've lied about small things. Sometimes my lies are more in a joking fashion, just to play off of stuff, and I don't count those. Those are fine. Those are excused. White lies, not so much. You know, if somebody asks, how do I look? There's definitely this filter that steps in there saying, are you willing to, like, you know, break a certain level of, yeah, the honor paragon, there is one there, by violating it for this. It's fine if it's just in fun. It's not fine if I'm protecting my actual evaluation and not giving that, if I'm not being honest under those circumstances. But the one in particular that I was looking at was my unwillingness to approach people, and when I am approached, when I am being engaged in small talk conversations, this tendency to run away, which I don't think really is. I don't think this applies to it particularly. I think that's just sort of I don't know, sort of just an escape or something from a situation that I can't handle. But that whole not being willing to approach, look, naturally it's hard for everybody, naturally, damn near. I'm sure there are people who have developed the habit to the point where it's just what they do, you know. But for me, it's, I think, exceptionally hard. And some of that may be, you know, how I'm wired and whatnot. But it feels like I put that up there as a sort of defense. And it's one kind of interesting thing. I've been talking about the chatbots for a while. Played around with a couple of chatbots recently where I used, and I've done this before, I used what I believed would be my actual responses under certain circumstances. And yeah, even the chatbots can't deal with it and wander away. You know, I mean, they've gotten good enough that they do that usually, which I find really, really interesting. And I might be able to learn something from them. But the question is, you know, do you want to learn to be what you've convinced yourself, not as a bad person, but as somehow immoral for you, right? It would be fine for anyone else. In fact, it's necessary for other people, but it is absolutely wrong for me. And yeah, so there's a situation where there's someone, I've never spoken to them, who goes dancing. And every now and then I see them. And kind of like a couple of friends that I saw on my airplane flight to my first college situation, which was an orientation type thing. Got on the plane, saw these two guys, and thought, wow, there's something really interesting about them. They're really weird, but in a cool sort of way, in my view. Somehow or another, I ended up becoming friends with them. But, you know, like they were gonna share a ride to the college, and I ended up, you know, my first impulse was, ooh, I should see if I can hitch a ride with them too, because they were so blatantly there that, and I was paying attention to them, that I knew that they were getting a ride. But of course I wouldn't ask that. So I think I ended up sharing a ride with someone at random, you know, sort of thing. I'm not positive, I don't remember. And it's not like I don't end up running into people and making friends now and then, or making acquaintances now and then. I actually made an acquaintance with someone before I actually ended up, I don't really want to use the word hooked up with, because that has other connotations now, but at the time it was basically connecting with or whatever. And, you know, we became friends for years while I was in college, and, you know, that first couple of years, it was very close friendship. But anyway, like I said, there's someone at dancing who I've seen a few times. Comes in at kind of a weird time, like kind of late usually, and leaves maybe a little early, who just has like drawn my attention from almost the first time I noticed her. And I'm not sure why. You know, I just have no idea why. It's just sort of like there's this draw. Now I had this before when I lived here with someone, and they ended up approaching me and, you know, complimenting me on my dancing and whatnot, and then I ended up screwing up everything basically with her, just in terms of like, you know, making something mean too much. And then, you know, I eventually like confessed and came up, you know, completely stalker seeming, right? Which maybe isn't untrue. You know, it's that sort of, I felt like there should be something there, and there wasn't, and it's probably the same thing I'm doing here. But it's just, it's a very strange situation, and it's like there's this initial, not just initial, there's this automatic, constant not wanting to approach or whatever. And even if she did, I wouldn't I wouldn't say the right things to indicate any kind of interest or whatever. If anything, I'd probably come off, uh, in that paragon fashion of being kind of aloof and whatever to everything, which is very, very disturbing. Um, but, then there's this, hey, look, why are you feeling drawn to this person? Why is this there? Is there something there? Is there some meaning to it, etc.? And I don't know. It really hit home this last time more than it had in other times. Other times it was just sort of a, wow, I'm glad I got to see them. Right? Someone I'd never spoken to or anything, but just feel this connection that is just illusory as hell, I'm sure. And yeah, the whole idea of actually saying something, of actually approaching. I mean, first of all, I know how bad I am at that kind of circumstance. I also know, there's sort of this just automatic reluctance that anybody has towards that I alluded to as well. But then there's finally, and the thing that I'm trying to get my finger on here, this sort of feeling of, yes, and that is something I don't do. Just sort of as this, it would be almost morally wrong for me to do it as a layer there, which is really, really fucking weird. you know, and in some ways, I'm trying to bend that or get courage or whatever. But I'm also pretty sure that nothing positive will come of it. Like every time I have reached out in my life and been the first person to do so, it hasn't been good. Like in the sense that nothing happens, right? Nothing good happens except maybe I come off as the stumbling, creepy person that I am, right? Whereas if I keep that paragon front up, that other people approaching has sometimes been of value. Kind of across the board with everything. Like, I don't remember how the two guys in Buffalo, how we ended up first interacting, but I'm almost certain that it wasn't me making, the first conversational gesture. I can remember one time when it wasn't horrible, but it also wasn't somebody that I really wanted to deal with all that much. It was a guy who was talking SFB on the bus. I think I've related this before. And, I just couldn't avoid saying something. Well, I could have. I just didn't avoid saying something. And, we gamed a couple of times. And, peripheral buddy type thing. But just not somebody that I wanted to hang out with particularly. But other than that, almost everything where I've approached someone first has just been awful. Of course, most times when someone else approaches me first, it also just dies right away because my personality is, I don't know, off-putting, I guess, is the right word for it. So yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. The neat thing that I just discovered that finally triggered me is something I've been playing with for certainly the last week, but maybe before that, was, yeah, definitely before that, was seeing the chatbots are reacting, in the same sort of way when I don't play the ping pong of conversation right, things just die. And that might be useful because at least, but it's hard because it's really hard to know what to say. Like in the moment, there's almost like there's this half second or so delay to me getting the clever retort or whatever. And then after that delay, it's no good. You can't go back. You can't rewind, which is why I was very good on forums, because I'd have that time to see something, think of the beginning of a reply, and type it out. And it would be really, really fast, almost conversation fast, but almost. And that's about how I am in real life as well. I'm almost conversation fast. And I like to think that I'm pretty witty if allowed that little pause, but I don't take it. I just say something, that's not as clever as I would hope. Anyway, there we go. I'll load this up. I don't know if it's worth shit, but we like to speak.